You talk about why aren't cops coming out? Well, another reason is, what good will it do? Serpico came out. That's the classic story of a cop coming out, putting his life on the line. Not only his job, his life. And he comes out, you know, what happened? Well, they had a big major investigation called the KNAPP Commission, K-N-A-P-P, New York City got, and they made all kind of changes. Do you think now the New York City Police Department, is an example of the way police departments should be since Serpico came out years ago? Didn't make a damn bit of difference. So here's a guy that lost his job, had threats to his life, his whole life has been disrupted. For what? There were no changes.
Do you think police departments purposely promote racism?
No, I don't see them purposefully promoting racism. The racism is there, and so it gets promoted because it's there already or it's acquired. A lot of racism is acquired, and here I'm also throwing, putting up an understanding of why racism is acquired. When you get that job, you come out of the police academy, and most cops, when you come out of the police academy, you get sent to the worst police divisions. You get sent to the belly of the beast. Because what happens is you have guys that are already working there who have a little time on. They all have transfers. They want to get out to the white neighborhoods, the nicer neighborhoods. So every time a class graduates, they go into these bad neighborhoods, and the cops that have transfers, they get out. So you're automatically sent to a bad division. When you deal with a negative, and the black people in the ghetto, they are frustrated. They've been oppressed. They see police as the oppressors, as protectors against the citizens. They've seen, before you got there, the previous police officers who became hardened and racist. Well, they judge these new officers like that because that's what they're used to, because they've seen their uncles and brothers beaten unmercifully. They've seen their relatives being grabbed off the street and said, I saw you commit that crime, when they didn't. Now, what happens with the police is, you have to realize too, it's always confrontational. Police job is totally different. You're not a photographer who goes to weddings and birthday parties. You're going to where there's always problems, where people are fighting, oftentimes intoxicated, and therefore, you know, they're always putting up a fight, you know, to you. So it's constant problems. The number one call, most prevalent call in the police department, is a disturbance house. That's where usually a guy and a girlfriend or wife are fighting, and you got to get the guy out of there. So and they're not going to go. You got to use force to get them to go. And so and then when you do use force to get them to go, sometimes the girlfriend jumps on you and leave my boyfriend alone. So it's just a very frustrating job, and you're always constantly, and then involved with negativity. That does harden you. It does insensitize you. And then what you do is automatically you place this on the people that you're working with. It's black people.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like if you're in a black neighborhood and you're always seeing problems, instead of saying, well, I'm in a black neighborhood, so maybe 1% of the people are always causing problems, a lot of the white people that are more ignorant, they go, oh, it's just black people always causing problems. Well, if you went to a lower income white neighborhood where there's a lot of crime, it's always going to be white people. But people don't look at it like that because, you know, over decades and centuries, it's just, you know, they just get the bad name of black people are just always criminals. And especially after the 80s, you know, when I was growing up during the war on drugs, when it started to escalate, you know, I would notice, and, you know, as white people, we have to admit when we have our racist tendencies, and then you have to immediately say, no, that's not right. You know, so you'll see a black person, and for instance, my dad was very giving to homeless people, so they would come up, and we had something in the 80s called like the squeegee guys, the homeless guys that come up, you know, and
a stoplight into your
my mom didn't like when my dad gave him money at all, but I always tend to notice that my mom was a lot more scared when it was a black guy coming up and doing it. And she never just said outright, oh my God, it's a black guy. But I, you know, as a kid, I'm very observant. I always noticed over the years that my mom's not a racist person, but this kind of programming that society has done to her, that's what's happened, you know. And so when you work in a black neighborhood, you know, when you're just starting out, you just look at it as all black people are bad. You know, and then so like you said, you're hardened and you're numb, and you're just like, oh, just another bad black person. Let's go deal with them and let's end it quickly and beat them up and get them out of here. And that's how at least I observe from my outside perspective what's going on.
You hit it.
Have you thought of any possible solutions that would fix the acquired racism cycle?
Well, one thing, you have to have counseling, mandatory counseling. Right now, there's counseling available, and when I realized that I was getting too aggressive with the people, I said, "Well, I hit somebody unnecessarily," and I thought, "Wow, what the heck did I just do? I can't do that again. I got to make sure I control myself." A week later, I used some excessive force again. I said, "Oh, whoa. I can't do that." Then I thought, wait a minute. I said that last time. I can't do that again. And I did it again. So I said, whoa, I am falling into the trap of like an abusive husband.
So you're going to get a rehab. You do a drug, you say, I could never party like that again, and then you do it again. It's the same kind of
Same thing.
Yep.
But fortunately, after the second time, I said, no, tell myself I can't do that again. It's not going to work. The city does provide psychologists, and I went to see one, and what a joke it was. He was sitting at a desk, I'm sitting over here, and after about 15 minutes, he gets up, he goes over, looks out the window, pulls back the curtains, and puts it back, and he comes back and sits down. He goes, I just wanted to check. I just bought a brand new red Corvette, and I just want to make sure it's okay. And I thought, a little strange.
That's his priority.
But then another 15 minutes, a half an hour into it, he gets up and does it again, and he sits down. I said, that was it. I said, red Corvette again, right? He goes, yeah, I just bought it. Get the hell out of here. I just walked out. I'm not that type of, I just totally lost confidence. So anyway, I had to do a lot of positive suggestions. I went through when you go to sleep at night, you constantly what you do is you visualize a situation where you can lose your temper, and you visualize yourself doing it properly. And that visualization really gets sunk into your subconscious mind, but you have to do it frequently. And then I had little 3x5 index cards when I opened my locker door. Be professional. I would stick one up on the dashboard of the patrol car. Be cool. Be calm. And so all these little helpers.
Well, I think that's first of all wonderful, but you're probably the rarity.
Yes, that's not. But that's why I say mandatory.
To make
mandatory counseling. And help the officers understand what's going on.
Don't you have a degree in psychology?
Yeah.
So I think I've talked about it in our group MindBanged, that cops should probably have a mandatory couple of requirements. I mean, I think every cop should mandatorily have an associate's or a bachelor's.
Some cities do.
And but I think all across the board, and I think within that have to be a lot of sociology and psychology if you're going to want to go into police.
Here's the one drawback with that, Brad, and it's a very practical problem.
Andrew.
Once somebody starts to go to college, it's like, hey, why do I want to be a cop?
Exactly. Yeah.
So so it's you have a very small pool of people, because so many get thrown out, because they did drugs, they're thieves, and they're liars and all kind of things, and they can't even pass the written test. So you have a lot of these people thrown out, and so when you do get somebody who's really passes everything, but they don't have a college degree, you don't have enough applicants to require college, and especially then you're not going to have that. You're going to cut down further on college educated applicants, because once they do get those 2 years in, or especially 4 years, forget it. Nobody's going to go to 4 years and have. Well, I did.
I was going to say,
yeah,
you did,
but that was after a lot of jobs in the psychological field. So that's the drawback there. Especially, people see the danger. Geez, I got an education. Why do I want to face that danger? The pay is not that great. It's comfortable, but it's not that great. So there's two sides of getting that education.
Yeah. But what about maybe just a mandatory course, like when you go into the academy? Maybe making them take a required course in psychology. I think maybe at that point they're already going to be a cop.
Yes, absolutely.
So something like that.
Cut down on the firearms training. Some of these academies, 60% of their time is spent on firearms, how to beat somebody into submission, defense. Cut down on that. Give them the background so they don't even have to pull their firearm. Conflict mediation. You know how many hours I had in conflict mediation?
Not many.
0. See, that's where so what happens? You go through the police academy, And what is the emphasis of the police academy is the emphasis that's in your mind now.
Yeah, just
And that emphasis
always
is,
react and enforce.
yeah, I'm the powerful one. I'm the dominant one. Not, hey, I'm the mediator. I'm passive, they'll be passive. That's not stress. So what you're a product of the teaching of the police academy, the emphasis of the police academy. You have 60% training on that fire range and fighting. That's what police is about.
Yeah, that's what you walk away with. Yeah, exactly.
Do you think, you mentioned two parts to the problem between police and black community. The police mindset, the acquired racism was one of them. But in addition to that, the mindset that's been passed along in the black community, do you think if you just worked on the side of the police, such as mandatory counseling, possible psychology classes, that will solve the problem within the black community, or do you need to go a step further?
That would solve. It would help to solve the problem, but it would take a long time. It would take a full generation of the black people to see a whole different police department. It's not going to happen in a couple of years because it's been ingrained generation after generation. The first time I ever heard of this was in Ferguson, when I heard of that black people give their children the talk.
Oh yeah.
Now to me, the talk was always about the birds and the bees.
Yeah, there's a meme going around the internet. Yeah,
Yeah.
son, you might get beat up.
And
cooperate.
I talked to people out there, and I made a very good friend, Wanda Merrill. She was with me every night on the protest line, and she said that is a reality, that a mother and father sit down with their, and this is so sad, with an 11-year-old, 12-year-old son, daughter, and have to explain to them, this is how you have to react to the police. At that age, my parents were telling me, if you ever need help, if you're ever in trouble, go to the police. He's the savior. You are totally safe with the difference right there. Struck me dramatically. So it's so ingrained that there's no easy answer. There's no quick answer. But it generates, and of course it takes a lot more than just mandatory counseling. You have to, the very first step is the most important step here in all the police problems. Abuse, theft, racism, and that is the type of person you hire, the personality type.
Yeah, where they come from growing up, you know.
And so anyway, they do give out a very extent. It's the most widely used personality test in the world. It's called the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. Multiphasic, it measures different phases of your personality, aspects of your personality. 500 questions. It's really all inclusive. And unfortunately, it's not, the results are not used properly. They get rid of people. If you score too high on sensitivity and empathy, this guy's not going to make a good cop. They want that John Wayne syndrome, that tough, powerful, authoritative. That's the good cop. That's the kind we want. And so right off the bat, you're getting the wrong people. That's the biggest change. You want improved relations in the black community. That outweighs everything else.
Absolutely.
Getting the right person to begin with. You want a person who scores high as being a social worker. Because it's 90% social worker can be handled by social work. And any of the rough stuff, the rough and tumble, a social worker can do.
And then the other, I mean, it's, for a long time, it was just kind of a myth, but I believe there was a couple of instances where departments pretty much admitted, or journalists uncovered the fact that, you know, if you score too high on your written exams, that they're not taking you. And a personal example is a friend of mine, I think he scored like a 98, and they didn't call him back at all. They told him he had a 98. He called up about a month later and said, oh, you got a 98? And he goes, how come you haven't called me back? And he goes, oh, we're trying to, you know, we're filled right now. It was NYPD. This is when they were putting out commercials.
Was it NYPD?
Yeah, they were putting out commercials.
See, now that bothers me.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, and then they said, oh, we'll contact you when the academy opens up again. Meanwhile, there's commercials on the radio saying we're open. So right then and there, from a personal experience of hearing a friend, I knew it. But you know how prevalent it is or not, it makes sense though. You know, because if you're very intelligent, you might question orders. I think is what it comes down to.
More likely to.
More likely to, at least, yeah. So, you know, I don't want to say dumb people or lesser intelligent people don't have a heart, but they're less likely to think critically and say, well, what are the implications of this order? They just go the old "I'm taking orders" kind of thing, you know, whereas someone a little more intelligent might think critically, you know. So I think it comes down to that. But do you think it's really prevalent across the board?
Well, when you say your friend was applying to the NYPD, that's very disturbing. I remember reading about one incident that made the internet, where an individual was turned down because he'd scored too high. I viewed that as a very isolated incident, as an anomaly. But when you tell me the NYPD is doing it, now that's scary. I did not think that was prevalent across the country. It wasn't there when I was there in Philadelphia. But now it would be interesting to find out exactly how many cities that is working with, because that's outrageous. Now I know when I got in, veterans were getting, Vietnam vets were getting 10 extra points. So like your first 100 applicants were all vets, and that's what they wanted. That's exactly what they were. Somebody to take orders.
Hardened, and they're hardened for, you know, that kind of conflict.
And to take orders.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah, that too, of course. But my concern is always too is another example. NYPD. I'm not going to say the officer's name, but my brother, one of his old neighbors. The two of them had a couple beers. They were talking about something, and the guy flipped and jumped on my brother.
The cop.
Yeah, the cop. You know, he was off duty there at home, just hanging out. Put his knees on my brother's shoulder and was just about to beat the crap out of him. My brother's a tough guy, but this guy reacted because he's a vet. And the wives had to break them up.
Wow.
And the guy's got PTSD. And if this is how he acts with his good friend, imagine how he acts with people he doesn't know and people he might even fear or loathe. And so, again, you know, I can't say that this is the example, but this is a pretty bad example, you know, to come.
It's not that unusual as you think. You know, you mentioned also another good thing. Cops, there's a level right below PTSD, and that's called burnout. When you see some of these videos, you see a guy going up and he'll scream at the driver, "Did you see you just went through that red light? You could have killed somebody." Instead of saying, "Excuse me, you went through that red light, could I see your driver's license?" And whenever I see that, I know exactly what's going on. That cop is burnt out. Because it's a constant daily thing of confrontation and having people disrespect you. Right? You have to understand there's another side to this. There is a cop side.
Of course, yeah.
And if you don't understand that, you're missing the whole thing here. So they're constantly meeting people who disrespect, who wants to get a ticket. You know, so cops give out a lot of tickets, and they're constantly getting people to shout, you know, animosity towards you. And so cops deal with that. Lawyers don't get that animosity every day. Doctors don't get that every day. Insurance salesmen don't get that every day. Carpenters don't get that every day. Cops do. They get that anger, that disrespect coming back at them day after day. When you see a guy who screams at somebody and you think, "Oh my gosh, that's horrible." Now, I'm not talking about the verbal abuse, but I'm not talking about the physical abuse, but the verbal abuse, I know right away that guy is burned out. He needs a change of scenery. He needs counseling. And another way to deal with that abuse is change of scenery. Rotate these cops out of there.